Okay, hello, welcome to our Study Hacks webinar. My name is Dr. Jill Byrne and my colleague here is Dr. Chris Ireland, and we're from the Academic Study Consultants. And so today, the theme of the session is exploration. We're exploring different ways in which you can do your studying. So maybe more efficient ways, maybe more effective ways, maybe more creative ways. But the whole idea is to explore maybe different ways of doing things. So maybe trying out new things and doing things in new ways to see if that results in different outcomes. So the whole focus of our session today is upskilling your assignment planning and your research skills. So the aim of this session is to explore mind mapping strategies for assignment planning, which hopefully will give you an introduction to more creative ways of thinking around the assignment tasks you have, your essay questions, your report questions, whatever that may be. I'm going to deliver that first part, and then I'm going to hand over to my colleague Chris, and he's going to explore search strategies, particularly looking at internet search strategies. And then we'll have a Q&A session at the end, but if you have any questions throughout, please just use the chat and ask away. So, what are mind maps? Mind maps are a visual representation of your thinking. So they allow you to think creatively about the task ahead. So to get ideas out on paper. They're a method of exploring your ideas and exploring the possibilities of how you might approach an assignment, what you might include in an assignment. But they're not random, okay? So you're not like brainstorming and just going blah out on paper, everything. Maps have links, they make connections, they build bridges between ideas. And a visual representation allows you to think about how ideas stand in relation to one another. So, they're an alternative to linear structures. Linear structures are often used in assignment writing, assignment planning. They're often what we've been taught throughout schools and college. And at one level, there's nothing wrong with them. However, they can be very limiting in the way that they allow you to think, in that they can send you down a very straight, narrow path. Introduction, main body, points for, points against, or advantages, disadvantages, conclusion. And we can get stuck in these linear structures. However, rather than one fixed path, there are usually many different options and lots of different paths that you can travel on. So how do mind maps help you then? They can free up your thinking from those linear structures that can be limiting. They can allow for further exploration. They can allow you to think wider. They can allow you to make connections and relationships across and between ideas, and for you to visually see those connections. You can think wider, you can explore possibilities, and then because you can see this mapped out visually, you can refine more effectively. You can also then assess and evaluate the ideas that you've visually set out before writing, and you can move things around. And you can do all that before you start writing. And you can also assess the limits of your knowledge. So once you've seen everything, all that you know, all that you've got out there on paper, you can start to decide what you know, what you need to know more about, and you can create a research and a reading plan. So how do these mind maps work then? Let's have a look at some examples. So I'm going to show you some real examples. These are examples that were created by students. So this is a plan for an essay. It's a 3,000-word essay, undergraduate. Management and managing are characteristically gendered in many respects, that should say. And that was the starting point, that was the starting quote for an essay, and the student was required to evaluate that statement. So does gender, does whether you're male or female, influence the opportunities you have in terms of reaching high levels within an organisation and managing? And so this student starts to think about these ideas and thinks, well, okay, the first stage of gendering is actually in education, right from the start of education. So why is this stage important? Career options on gender, statistics, factors influencing gender segregation in the workplace. So horizontal structures, vertical structures, men top of the hierarchy, more men in management roles. There's many theories about that. Women equal informal networks, perhaps more so than formal networks. Part-time work, full-time work. Why gender differences exist, biological differences. Women are more likely to take a break from work to have children than men. But there are structural differences, there are socialization differences. And so you can see this student mapping out her ideas, and then these arrows are showing the connections between ideas. She's building those roads, those paths, making those connections and building those bridges and getting lots of ideas out on paper here. And you can see there are all sorts of ways in which she could go with this assignment and where she might do some more reading. Here's a different one, looks different. Same sort of question or topic area, sex and power. Is it possible or impossible to work full-time and combine family duties? So this is about work-life balance, but it's also about gender, because family duties may well be different for men and women. So again, the student starts to think about the ideas. Okay, what's today's picture in terms of empowering women, feasibility, market innovation, question of income living costs? What's the limitations of this development? Discrimination, pay gap, different skills, part-time or de-skilled jobs. Who's more likely to be working part-time and in de-skilled jobs, men or women? Who's more likely to be doing domestic and childcare duties? Working culture, is there a focus on mothers? What about men? Is their role changing? Is paternity leave and paternity responsibilities, both socially and legally, changing? Okay, what's the legislation then? Okay, so again, ideas, arrows, creating a map around this subject and this topic, but thinking widely. Now, this particular student used this as a plan. She then did her reading, she then did her writing, and then when she came to edit her assignment before finally handing it in, she went back to her plan, and she used this map to help her edit, check and evaluate what she'd written. And she could see that perhaps the weighting of what she was writing about was a little bit off and she needed to change it. She'd got way too much stuff on legislation, not enough on the roles of women and working culture and so on. So she could see that she needed to do some tinkering. And so this map acted as a guide throughout the whole process for this student. Okay, so let's have a go at a mind map. Let's try one. Here's a question. Critically evaluate the causes and consequences of global decline in bee populations. So I've highlighted causes and consequences in red because there's two elements to this question. And when you get a question like that, you need to make sure that you cover both aspects and you equally weight perhaps both aspects. It can be tempting to just focus on one aspect and then forget the other. So what do I know about declining bee populations? I know what I've seen in the media, I know what I've read in newspapers, I know what I've heard, I know that the chemicals that are used in agriculture are a problem. I know that there are other causes. I know that people talk about different ways of farming, large farms, the reduction of hedgerows, urbanisation, the native habitat of bees being impeached upon by man. But let's have a focus on these chemicals to start off with. So I did a little bit of reading, and apparently there's a particular chemical called Neonicotinoids, and they're an issue. I then thought, well, actually, do you know what? I want to know what the extent of the decline is first before I go much further. So these are, and I don't really know that. What's happening in the bee population? Is it the same around the world? Has there already been an impact on food production? Because although I don't know the answers to those questions, I do know that there's a relationship between bees and food. Bees pollinate our food. So this is me just getting out of my brain what I already know. So the consequences I am assuming would be economic and food production. So I know a bit, but I need to know some more and I need to do some reading. So let's have a look. I did a little bit of reading. So these chemicals, these neonicotinoids, apparently they suppress the immune system of bees. So that's one way in which they affect the bees. Do they always result in the reduction of bees wherever they're used in the world? Well, apparently they use them extensively in Australia or Canada, but they don't appear to be having the same colony collapse disorder as they are in other parts of the world. So are these the sole cause of the colony collapse, or is there something else going on? Well, apparently there are viral pathogens and parasitic mites. So if you think, well, okay, if those exist, these parasites and pathogens, the viruses, bees get viruses the same as humans, are there, and these neonicotinoids are suppressing the immune system, maybe the bees aren't as effective at fighting off the parasites as they were before. Perhaps they don't have as many viral pathogens and parasitic mites in Australia and Canada, and maybe that's why they're not as affected there. So I'm going to have to do some more reading around that, and I might need to do a bit more reading about what this colony collapse disorder actually is. So I've got some ideas then about what might be causing the problem, and I need to do some more reading there, so that's going on my reading list. But let's have a look at the issue of consequences then. So the majority of the planet's 100 most important food crops depend on insect pollination. Okay, so if we lose our bees, we lose our food. Pretty big consequence. But Martin Smith, he's the president of the British Beekeepers Association, and he was talking about how the United Nations has recognised the importance of managed honeybees. They contribute 153 billion to the global food production, so there's an economic consequence here. But maybe these managed bees are our solution. If we can manage bees, if we can farm bees, we can keep them away from the neonicotinoids, we can keep them away from pathogens and parasites, perhaps. Would that be solving our problem? Well, apparently a recent international study found of 41 crop systems on 6 continents that wild bees are important to their pollinization. If we rely solely on domesticated honeybees, we could ultimately put these crops at risk. That's from E. Grossman, Yale University. So, okay, we've got 2 different ideas. Managed farm bees, the importance of wild bees. So 2 different opinions. I need to do some more research around that. Plus Martin Smith, he is the president of the British Beekeepers Association. Perhaps he has some vested interest in managed bees. There might be some bias as to his opinion, and I'd need to get a more rounded understanding of that whole issue. But I'm starting to see ideas, relationships between ideas, and I'm also starting to see where I need to do more reading. So what do we do next? What comes next? Reading and research. What do I know already? What do I need to know? Where's my evidence? And where's my discussion? I was starting to get a bit of a discussion between the farmed bees and the wild bees. I was starting to get some nuances between areas in the world where these neonicotinoids are having a big impact and areas where they're used but they're not having as much of an impact. So there's ways in which I can go, and I could see that visually, and I could plot that out visually, and I was creating a map for myself to go forward. Okay, I'm going to pass over to Chris now, who's going to take that forward in terms of how you might manage that as a research and a reading project.
Okay, so and there, hopefully you can see my slides now. So yes, what I'm going to talk about are doing your online searches to do the reading that Jill's spoken about. And the 3 areas that probably you might be familiar with: your university library, Google Scholar. I'd say probably this is where most of the research goes on. So first of all, your university library, that's everything that your university has paid for. And that also includes non-academic sources, important non-academic sources, like newspaper articles. It could be marketing reports, company reports. So there's all of that on top of all of the academic stuff. Then there's Google. So Google is anything you're likely to find on the web, and that includes a lot of material that might not be valid for academic research. So one thing that you can do is use some what they call operators to limit your research to make it more valid academically. So the 2 that I want to focus on here are Cite, where you could put, for example, ac.uk, and that would limit your search to UK academic sources. And then if you also put file type PDF, that means you won't get lots of PowerPoint. So you're less likely to get lots of lectures. You're more likely to get academic articles. So I'll just show you what that might look like. So I've got a search here for Neonicotinoids, bee population, and we've got over 300,000 results. So if I then put before that cite:/ac.uk and do my search, that reduces the results to 6,390. And as I said, we probably don't want PowerPoint presentations. We want to focus on PDFs. So if I type file type and write PDF, that halves my results even further. Still far too many results. But now I'm going to go back to the presentation, and we'll see how we can reduce our results even further. Okay, so I've done a sample search, and we'll now move on to where I think you should be doing most of your searching, and that's in Google Scholar, because most of the electronic academic stuff that you're going to find from your library and from Google, you will be able to find in Google Scholar. So it's only academic. So that, as I said before, your university library has a lot of non-academic stuff that you're going to find really useful. But as far as academic stuff, Google Scholar is a really good place to start. So it includes sources that your university has not paid for. And that will be for two reasons. One, there's lots of free resources in Google Scholar. So PhDs in university repositories and other papers that might not have been published in journal articles, or there may be free journals that maybe your university library hasn't incorporated. There will also be stuff that they will ask for money. So you might click on a really good article and it says that you have to pay £30. You don't pay. What you do is you speak to your university library about doing what's called an interlibrary loan. So that's where you could get an article possibly from anywhere in the world, and it should either be free or very, very cheap. It shouldn't cost a lot of money. A lot of universities, it's free. So what I want to do now is do some a closer look at Google Scholar. And the first thing I want to do, you may have this already, but some of you may not, is incorporating links to your library. So when you're in Google Scholar, if you click on the three lines, then you will get this menu. Now, ignore My Library. That's nothing to do with where you want to go. You want to go down to Settings and click on Settings. And then when you're in there, you want to click on Library Links. And then you will get this search window here. And you need to type the name of your university. So in the case I'm using here was the university I was working with before was Bristol. So I type Bristol, and then you click where it says University of Bristol after you've done your search, and a tick will appear. You will click on Save, and then that means that you will see any academic source that your university has available electronically. Now then, if you hadn't done that, your search page that you get there for declining bee population would look like that. Once you've set it up with, in this case, it's Bristol University Library. It will have links there. You can see every source on that page has links to Bristol University Library. So had you not done that, you would only be able to access 2 of them, these 2 here. The other 2 you would have difficulty accessing, or they would ask for money. So that's why it's important to set it up with your university library. Here we have search operators that I want to now talk to you about how you're going to use those in your Google searches. It's really important that you do your Google searches using these. So the first one is the minus sign. That means that you exclude any term that you put it before, that it precedes. Then the second one that we've got here is the shorthand for or. So that returns a result for either one or other of the terms that you put either side of it. Sorry, just one moment.
Things always happen, don't they? At the wrong moment.
Sorry about that. Then, and I'll show you that in a moment. Then the next one is the 2 sets of inverted commas. That returns the exact phrase that you put between those quotation marks. And then the final one that I want to show you is the wildcard. So the wildcard represents any word. So I'll just come out of there and we'll go into Google Scholar. So let's have a look. The first one that I'm just going to put in bee populations. There we are. And we've got way too many results. We've got 464,000. Now, by simply putting inverted commas around bee populations, there. So I've treated that, it's only searching for bee populations now, whereas before it was searching for any article that had the word bee and the word populations. So this is now looking for bee populations. So it's still far too many. We could start using the date down the side, but because we know we're talking about declining, I'm going to write the word declining. So declining bee populations. And that gets us down to 319. So we're getting lower and lower. So what I'm trying to do, I am trying to get my search results down to they're on one page and that I don't have to scroll, because very few of us go onto another page, and scrolling is just, I find it annoying if I have to keep scrolling up and down the page. So just a very few results is what I'm after. So the next search I'm going to do is I'm imagining the kind of things it might say in articles that I want to read. So I'm going to say bee populations are declining. 152. Bee populations are declining because 6. I don't actually mind scrolling too much with just 6. So I'm looking through and I can see that it's highlighting on a lot of these. It's highlighting, so I can see what it's saying. I've got some links here. Notice actually none of them are available through Bristol University Library, but I do have quite a few links there that will take me to free resources anyway. Now, that's quite certain bee populations are declining. So the thing that I want to do next is introduce the wildcard that I spoke about. So if I put a wildcard in there, they're exactly the same. Let's introduce another wildcard. Nothing. Ah. So, Ahmed et al. 2003 suggests that bee populations in Nepal are declining because of diminished floral resources available. So, I could go through Bristol. It's actually available on ResearchGate. So I'm going to have a look in there. And I'm just going to do a quick search for that phrase. So that was bee populations. There, we've got it here. Ahmed et al. I'll make that a little bit bigger for you. Suggests that bee populations in Nepal are declining because of diminished floral resources availability caused by clearing of agriculture and pest and disease pressures. And they told us another place to look as well. So what I might do, I might grab that, copy it into my notes that I'm taking. I'll put quotation marks around it so that I avoid the possibility of accidental plagiarism. I'm noticing it's on page 4, and I'm going to go back and I'm going to also take a reference for it. And I'll copy that and put it with those notes. And then I'll move on and I will maybe do some more wildcard searches. So these searches are with 4 words in the middle. So I've got bee populations, and I've got declining because, and I've got 4 wildcards in the middle. So here, bee populations, including native bees, are declining because. And again, I could do the same thing. I'll click on there, do a quick search. Again, we've just got the one. Bee populations, including native bees, are declining because of habitat. So again, I might grab that paragraph and save it to my notes inside inverted commas. So I get a habit of how I'm note-taking. At the moment, I'm not doing anything with it. I'm just collecting information around those ideas. So I could keep going. I've gone on before, and later on I might go on another search for up to 10 wildcards. But I'm going to pause that one now, and I am now going to change to declining bee populations. And I imagine, let's say, for example, I'm not interested in results that have got honey in them. I want to focus on these chemicals and the fact that the populations are falling. And I'm maybe getting lots of results with honey. So let's have a look and just see what we're getting at the moment with declining bee populations. So 319. So minus honey, 96. So anything with honey in it has now been eliminated from my search. And again, I could possibly say, well, I'm only interested in the last couple of years, 10 results. So you play around with these different parameters to get the results that you need. But the one that I want to put in this time is this chemical, Neonicotinoids. So we've got 155 results. Now, what I would quite like is to find sentences that have got both declining bee populations and neonicotinoids in them. And I'm not going to be worried about not finding any results. I'll persist, because I really think that there's going to be something to find. All there. Right. So we found, after 3 wildcards, so we don't know what the words are in the middle. We really want these sentences that have got declining bee populations, some words, we don't know what those words are, and neonicotinoids. So we found one. So again, I can go and click in there. And we can see neonicotinoids is in the title. So I might do a search for bee population again. And there it is. I've got bee pop and it's come up with declining bee populations have led to neonicotinoids coming under increasing scrutiny. So it might be that I think that's not so interesting. If it's not so interesting, don't read any further. Ignore it and move on. Don't try and read any more and search for some more. So again, I'm not getting any results there. I'll keep looking. 2 results, and it's got the links. Here underneath the short piece, I can read what it says and see if I think it looks interesting. Right, so now there's no link here, but it looks really interesting. So I'm just going to see if I can read it anyway. So it doesn't, it's in Scholar, it doesn't look academic, but it's talking about we need a plan, not just ban. Now, who are these? Who are the Royal Society of Biology? Do I trust them? So I might need to investigate that, but I'll still have a look and see if I can find. So with intensification of agriculture and a reduction in natural habitat impacted in declining bee populations, a predominant public focus on neonicotinoids also risks distracting us from other important factors. Oh, there are other important factors. Right. Well, I'll grab that, but I think I might want to find it somewhere more academic. So I copy it, go back, note down the full reference of where I found it, and carry on. So I'm still gonna carry on looking. I'm not getting bored. I'm hoping to find a few more sources that might be useful. I think there might be one more. Oh, there's 2 there. Okay. So again, I might go into that and do the same process. Now, the next thing I do when I've got a search like this with 2 terms like this is I swap them around. So I put neonicotinoids first and declining bee populations afterwards. And now I'm going to do searches and I'm going to reduce the wildcards. And I'm going to see if I find anything interesting. There. Sacrificing bees on the altar of profit. A criminological critique of neonicotinoid use in New Zealand. So we can access that through ResearchGate. There might be something interesting in there. We don't know. So I've got to move on. And I'm going to go all the way down to know. There we are. We've got 2 there. I can look inside them and see if I like the information that they're providing in there. I haven't found many, but what I found is probably very useful. And I always go right the way down to the minimum. So again, we've got a couple of links there. I've done no scrolling. I've not had to go on any second page. Sometimes when you do this, you'll have no results at all. If you get no results at all, you delete a word. So here I would delete declining. And then again, that's too many for me, but maybe I'll limit it by the years. There, 3 results since 2017 for that. The other thing I quickly want to show you is cited by. If you click on cited by, you will get publications that have happened since that item was published. This is 2019. So we've got cited by 10. Click on there. Search within the citing article. And then here I might put the word, I might put bees. There's 3 results that have got the word bees in them, or neonicotinoids, and so on. So those are only searching within that citing article, but you must tick there. So the only one that I haven't shown you is the or. So I've just prepared one there for you. So neonicotinoid or neonicotinoids. So if I was just to do one of them, so we've got 41,000 results there. If I was just to do one of them, we would only have half the number of results. So it's where you've got 2 terms that might be similar or for the same thing. You might want to put both of them in, and you would then have to refine that search. 41,000 or even 24,000, obviously way too many, but you'd refine it by putting in other terms and so on. Right, that's all I wanted to show you on the searching. So we're going to finish up now with a short conclusion. So Jill spoke to you about mind mapping. So in mind mapping, that stops you from staying in that traditional straitjacket of assignment planning. It helps you to widen your thinking. It helps you to organize your ideas and see how ideas relate to each other, and helps you to create a map that's useful for your research and your writing that you can come back to. And then what I did, I showed you online searching, and I particularly focused on Google Scholar, and I showed you the use of operators. Particularly, you can see that I like using the wildcard operators inside the inverted commas, and that makes your searching much more effective. And in both of the things that Jill and myself have spoken to you about, both of these ideas, study ideas that we've got for you, will definitely help you produce more critical writing, which is really what your lecturers are wanting you to produce in your assignments. So now, do you have any questions? Any questions at all? Or anything that you found useful in our presentation today? No, oh, there we are.
Thank you. You see, the mind maps are really useful because they're visual as well, which stimulates the mind in a different way to just text on paper and linear structures. But I've seen students produce these huge big mind maps on like A1 paper and write everything on Post-it notes and then like physically move things around. And that can be useful if you've got a much bigger piece of writing, say like a dissertation, to just sort of like plan things out and see what it's going to look like before you start writing it. Because sometimes when you start writing, you can get into something and then get lost. Yeah, brilliant. If you Google mind mapping, there's all sorts of resources out there. You can even get a mind mapping tool software, so you can do it on your computer. So yeah, just Google mind mapping. There's loads of stuff out there.
I know one of my students used to use lining paper that was left over from wallpapering.
Yeah. And using colours on there and pictures and images can be really helpful, because those things stimulate the brain in a different way, and just exploring what works for you, having a go and trying and exploring what works for you can be really useful. Sometimes we are more visually stimulated, and also it can help with memory as well. Using mind maps to plan out your revision for exams, for example, can help.
Anything else you want to say?
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, shall we wrap that up then? So thank you for attending, everybody that did, and we hope this was helpful for you.
You're welcome.
Great, thanks very much, guys. I'll end this meeting now unless there's any further questions, but as you both are aware, there'll be a recording. I'll share that with you, and then I'll share it with our resident groups through the event page as well. So thanks very much.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Bye.
Bye.